He is our 1980 batch from mechanical. I will tell you only that about him. The rest he is going to talk about himself. And very importantly, what we will do right now within the next couple of weeks going to be enormously beneficial for all these people who are thinking of starting a high-tech venture. So with that, I will ask Salil to start his session and give a big hand to Salil. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. Because where I come from, it's now about almost 8:15 a.m. And so my body clock might as well be at 8:15 a.m. And you guys don't know how lucky you are. Because where I come from, the temperature is, who wants to take a guess? Minus 20 degrees Celsius. And how much snow do you think we have? 30 inches of snow. So you guys are really lucky to be here. This is the first time I'm back in IIT for any substantial period of time after 35 years. I could recognize what used to be the ladies' hostel. That was the first thing I saw. It's just not there. I couldn't find it. I think I'll recognize Hostel 8, the Gymkhana, the MB, and I think I'll get lost after that. So I'm going to find my way around over the next few days here. I'd like to start off by thanking Professor Jasma and Professor Kusre for giving me the chance to be here. Very delighted to be sharing this evening with you and also Friday evening where we'll cover the financing and funding aspects. So before I get started, just to allow you to get to know me a little bit, graduated in 1980. I live in Hartford, Connecticut, just outside New York City. Have a wonderful family, 2 daughters, a wife. We are a very outdoor family. Do a lot of things in the winter, skiing, etc. I love to fly. I have a couple planes that I fly with some of my friends. So that's my personal side. On the professional side, what I'm going to cover with you today and on Friday is going to be based on my personal experiences. You won't find this in any textbooks. And apologies if what I say contradicts some of the textbooks. This is just what I have learned. I'm going to speak from the perspective of someone who has worked in a tiny company as an employee, as someone who has worked as an employee in a large company, as someone who was a founder and promoter of a failed company, as someone who was a founder and promoter of a successful company, as someone who was the CEO of a venture-backed company, as someone who was the interim CEO of an angel-funded company, and all these companies were taken to some pretty successful exits. Also a CEO of a company, a couple of companies that were private equity funded. As someone who's been on the board of directors of for-profit companies as well as non-profit companies. And lastly, as someone who does angel investing even today. So that's the perspective, that's the background that I will have today as I share things with you. And as Professor Kusre alluded to earlier, the next step, effective the 5th of February, I will be joining NASDAQ. How many of you have heard of NASDAQ? There you go, all of you. It's one of the largest stock exchanges in the world, and I'll be joining them as their global head of their global information and services business. So as all of you, or many of you, as many of you build up businesses and get them off the ground and think of doing an IPO, look me up and give me a call and we'll get you public. So very interactive because I don't have a set script, and you will get out of it what you put into it. So please interrupt me, ask as many questions as you'd like, okay? Can you guys hear me in the back all right? So I want to talk to you about the outline of what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about sales a little bit. And I'll share with you some broad concepts of sales. I know Professor Jaswa has talked with you about different aspects of sales. We'll drill down using what I refer to as the sales strategy diamond. We'll go around the diamond and I'll talk to you about that. And then we will discuss a case study that all of you have in front of you. Has everyone seen a copy of the case study? You have not? There's some copies lying around. You should... Sorry we couldn't put it on the portal earlier, but we'll give you a little bit of window today for you to read it. So that's going to be important. And we'll use the case study that you have in front of you to look at different sales aspects. Okay? That's the outline. All right, so let's look at that sales strategy diamond up there. So if you look at sales and how you accomplish sales, there are a few key areas that are very important. And so write these 4 words down for me. Trust, that's number 1. Dawn, D-A-W-N. Sell the money. And lastly, it's BATNA, B-A-T-N-A. If there's anything you walk away out of this session today, if you can walk away with those 4 things, this will be a successful session. All right, so let's start at the top. If I were trying to sell you a pen here, and Professor Kusre was trying to sell you a pen, obviously you know him better than you know me, and if it was the same pen we were selling for the same price, who would you buy it from? Yes, you'd buy it from him because there is a trust that's been established, there's a relationship that's been established. And in any transaction, the foundation of that transaction lies in the relationship, and it lies in the trust that has been built in that relationship. And this is true even of large deals, multi-million, multi-billion dollar deals, where if people have transacted business together and have gotten to know each other, the details of understanding the nitty-gritty of the product, of the deal, are not as important as the seller saying to the buyer, trust me, we've done business together, I have never misguided you, so it's the right thing for you to do. Makes sense, right? So a relationship is extremely important. Now, let's say we have a relationship, but over the next 2 or 3 weeks, we build a relationship, and you have a longer relationship with Professor Kusre, and we're still back in the same situation. Everything being equal, who would you buy that pen from? Still Professor Kusre. Because you've known him longer. You don't want to leave that relationship. Yeah, you're beginning to trust me. We're building a relationship, but you've got a nice long foundation. And there's nothing different that's requiring you to move. So why should you move? Now, if there was something different I was offering you, then maybe you'd start considering it, right? So it's important that the longevity of that relationship and the history of that relationship. If your history with, going back to, now I shouldn't use Professor Kusre because I want to use some other person A, with whom the relationship was a little rocky. Let's say there were some events where the person might have been just a little disingenuous, might have just a little bit misguided you. And now we're both selling the same pen. Aren't you going to start thinking of me as a viable alternative? Right? So the history of that relationship is important. Not just how long you've been at it, but have there been any stumbling events in that relationship? And so we started off with the relationship. We started off with how long that relationship is. And now we're on to how good that relationship has been. In every relationship, there are going to be stumbling points. There is not a single relationship in which you don't have challenges. The key is how those challenges are overcome. If the two parties work together, there's a challenge, there's a problem, and you solve the problem, it actually strengthens the relationship. So the history of the relationship is just as important as how long the relationship is. And there's another bullet up there which says, understand their problem. What do I mean by that? If I am trying to sell a product or service to someone, you cannot look at it from your own perspective. You have to put yourself in their shoes. Let me give you an actual example. So early in my career, we used to develop real-time machine control systems. Very sophisticated software that would actually control plant floor equipment and machinery. And we had invented a way of testing timing belts. One of my first jobs was at Uniroyal. This was a large tire manufacturing factory. And I used to work in their timing belt division. And they would put the timing belt on. Does everyone know what a timing belt is? No, okay. When you want to transfer power from the crankshaft of the engine, and you want to time the valves to open and close to let in petrol and air, that timing is controlled by the timing belt, which sequences how the valves open and close. Do you guys follow that? I don't want to get into a lecture on powertrain and engine transmission here today. So anyway, I used to work in their timing belt division, and these timing belts are tested. And they were tested manually by an operator looking at the belt and how it moved. And so we came up with a way where the software and the electronics would actually check the belt. And so we went and talked to the head of the QA department, and he really loved that. He thought it would improve the consistency of the quality of the timing belt, and they would get more efficiency. But he chose not to go ahead with it. Why do you think he did that? Just take a guess. Yes? Ah, you're right. Absolutely right. His biggest concern was, if I implement this system, it's going to check all these belts so quickly and so much more accurately that it might cause some jobs to be lost, right? So that was his problem. We were trying to sell him this technology, this software. We did not think about how he would sell it internally. We didn't realize what his problem was. Once we figured that out, we were able to convey to him that no, those people are not going to lose their jobs. In fact, their jobs will be more satisfying because now they can use their judgment. As opposed to doing mechanical work, just looking at the belt, they can now exercise a higher level of judgment in deciding what the test should be on the belt, as opposed to just doing the test. Do you follow what I'm saying, guys, here? We were able to improve the quality of the job that the employees were doing. And once we understood what their problem was, once we understood how this quality control manager had to sell internally, we were able to make our sale. So the point here to note is, never go in with your own perspective. Always go in thinking about what's important to them. All right? Any questions there? There's another point there called the social contract. A a social contract has to do with how we, and our actions, and our products, and our services affect society. Let me give you an example. On Sunday, I met with the chief engineering and design manager, was a vice president level person for Tata Power. My batchmate, Anjali Kulkarni, graduate from Pune Engineering. We won't hold it against her. She was not an IIT graduate. But, so she was telling me that when we go and build power plants, we take over property from different villages. You guys know how that works, right? And we give them fair compensation. But fair compensation is not enough, because we have displaced these people from their livelihood. Just paying them for the land is not enough. We have a social obligation to retrain them, to regroom them, and to get them ready for new avocations, new jobs, new things to do. And so if, as you go and sell, as we go and try and negotiate a deal, we have a social contract to understand if what we're doing is affecting them, how are we taking care of the people? How are we taking care of the environment? You guys follow this concept? So a social contract is also important. So that's the aspect, the first part of the diamond, which is trust and relationship. Any questions on that? Because then I'm going to move on to the next one here. Okay, good. Let's now talk about the process. In a sales process or a negotiation of a deal, the process is very important. How the transaction, how the interaction is conducted is important. Let's take some specific examples. One part of the process is making sure that you're working with, interacting with, or dealing with someone who has the dollars, which means the financial ability, need for dollars, authority to transact business with you, conduct business with you, willingness, wanting to do business with you, and the need to do business with you. If any one of those four is not present, you're not going to be able to make the sale, you're not going to be able to negotiate. Let's take an example. You go to a company with a product that you have, and they are just budget strapped. They just simply cannot afford to do it. You may be dealing with the CEO, he has the authority, he's willing to do it, and he obviously has the need. What's the point in wasting your time? He doesn't have the money to do it. Walk away. Don't spend any time there. And you can walk through each and every one of those. What's the point in going to a company that has the dollars, but you're dealing with a mid-level engineer who does not have the authority to spend, let's say, $500,000. Wrong person you're dealing with. So you have to work with the person at the right authority level. Take another example. You go and talk to the CEO of a company. Has the authority. Big company, probably has dollars. But he's happy with the status quo. He thinks, you know what? I'm doing everything just right. Is he willing to do anything? He's not willing to do it. So you're not likely to make a sale or negotiate a deal or engage in a transaction if he has the dollars, the authority, but not the willingness. He may still have the need. And the last part is the need. What's the point in having the dollars, having the authority, having the willingness, but they just simply don't need it? Take an example. A cousin of mine is in the business of manufacturing microfilters. These microfilters are used for purifying water that goes into Coke and other drinks, right? Is there a need for this product in a chemical manufacturing plant? There is simply no need, right? So you have to make sure that there is a need there of the product that you're trying to sell to whoever you're trying to sell it to. Yes, sir.
So the willingness part, aren't you supposed to control that?
Which
Isn't
part?
that the whole idea of negotiating?
Which part?
The willingness part. Like, they might have a need, but it's not clear to them, or whatever might be the situation. But the willingness part, I don't think people are going to be willing to just go for it, right?
Yeah, I understand. So his question is, the willingness part, aren't you supposed to control it during the sales process? And you bring up a very good point. And we're going to talk about how you get them to be willing in some of the other parts of the diamond. But the point I'm trying to make here is even after that, you do come up with a situation where people are unwilling. You should never believe that you are going to convince people 100% of the time. So when you figure out that they're just simply unwilling, the timing is not right, it's probably best not to spend a lot of time there. Any other questions?
So, can you please explain the difference between willingness and the need? Are they two words?
Yeah, okay. There is a difference. Go back to my microfilter example, right? Suppose it's a company that's making juices, and so they need to take water and purify it, and they want to use this. They need purified water, right? So they clearly have a need for that microfilter. You agree? Okay. But you're dealing with the CEO there. He has the dollars, he has the authority, and now we've established that he has the need. But he is so comfortable with the current way that they're doing it. He is simply not willing to change how they purify the water. He feels that the way they get the water from the stream and the way they purify it is more than adequate, and he's just unwilling to try anything different. He has the need, but he's unwilling to do it. Follow that? Okay, good. Anything else? All right. The process needs to be professional and respectful. Any interaction you have needs to be a very respectful interaction. You cannot be rude. You cannot be impolite. Professional courtesies are important. So how you interact with people is very vital in any transaction, any negotiation. Timing. I want to talk a little bit about timing. I like to think of every transaction and every negotiation as requiring a cook time. What does cook time mean? I may present you with an idea, and if it's a brand new idea, it's going to take you some time to get your head around it, right? It's going to take you some time to say, oh, I get it. You might not jump on it right away. And so the timing of when you actually press for or try to go for the final close on the deal or for the final close on the sale is very important. And you learn that over time. There's no science on how do you figure out the timing when you go for a final close. This is different from the other concept out there, which is qualification. As you're interacting with the person, as you're going through the sale or the negotiation process, you want to continuously qualify. What do I mean by that? So, if I want to sell you a pen, I want to keep asking you, so, is this the right color? Yes, it's the right color.
Yes.
It has the right tip. And so if the price were right, would you buy it? Yes. So I've kept on qualifying him, and I've kept on doing soft closes on him. I've done if I were able to do, so let's say he doesn't like the color. He wants a red colored pen. So then I say to him, okay, is the price okay? Is the tip okay? If I were to get you a red pen, would you buy it? So I've done a lot of the if I were to do something, would you? I've kept on qualifying it, right? Once I've qualified it, once I think he is cooked, which means mentally ready, then I can say, okay, it's 60 rupees. Can we do the deal right now? Right? That's the timing. And this timing comes from judgment. It comes from experience over a lot of time when you know that that's the right time to go for it. You guys understand the difference between qualification and timing? Okay, good. I want to now talk about this concept of selling the money. Alright, so I have in my hand a 1,000 rupee note. Okay, can you take a look at it and tell me if it's a real note? It's a real note. Trust me, it's a real note. Okay? So, it's a real note. It's a real 1,000 rupees. I am prepared to sell it to you for 500 rupees. How many of you want this? Is there anyone here who would not want to buy this from me for 500 rupees? Not one of you. Oh, okay. Oh, you don't want to buy it? Why don't you want to buy this one legitimate, backed up by the government of India? It's not a bogus 1,000 rupee note. It's a real 1,000 legal tender note. I'm prepared to sell for 500.
I want to know what's it for you to buy.
Why do you care? It's real 1,000 rupee note. I'm willing to sell for 500.
But I just want to know what's it for you. I just had a feeling I want to
I don't think it should matter. You've established that it's real value, and you're getting value for the money you're paying. So all of you would pay 500, wouldn't you? Okay, now I say it's going to cost you 900 rupees to buy this 1,000 rupee note. Would you buy it? Who would not buy it? Is there anyone here who would not buy it? Okay, 999 rupees. You wouldn't buy it. Why?
I just don't see a 1 rupee benefit.
But if I were prepared to sell 1,000,000 of these, I didn't say how many, I just said. So, okay, so anyone else would not buy it? Okay, now, here's the real question. Now I'm saying to you that this 1,000 rupee note, I'm going to sell for 1,500 rupees. Okay, who wants to buy it? No? Wait a minute. I'm going to tell you something else about this note. This note was printed on the 26th of January, 2015. Am I getting your interest? And wait a minute. This note, this legal tender, has the picture of Barack Obama and Narendra Modi on it next to Gandhiji. And this is a one-of-a-kind note. How many of you would buy it now? There you go. The point I'm making is that you are willing to pay. Think of the 1,000 rupee note as a product. You convert a product into some monetary value to you. And you're willing to buy it if you think you're getting the value for your money. And what I just did here with you is I sold you the money. I was able to convince you to pay 1,500 rupees for a 1,000 rupee note, wasn't I? Right? Because I was able to convey to you that there is more money in this 1,000 rupee note than the 1,500 rupees you're giving me. I just sold you the money. And the best deals and the best transactions and the best negotiations happen when you sell the money. So next time you're out there trying to sell a product, goods or services, or negotiating a deal, put yourself in the other person's shoes and try and figure out what is it really worth to him. Okay? Any questions on selling this money concept? This is an important concept we're going to use later today as we get into the case. Yes, sir?
How do I determine what value it is for him?
How do you determine what value it is?
From the other person's perspective.
Oh, from the other person's perspective. We're going to cover that a little bit. You have to ask a lot of questions.